Alright, cool. So I'm free to start whenever. Yeah? Alright, everyone. Can I have your attention? Thank you. Who's feeling brave? You are? Yeah? What were you told about this seminar, workshop, whatever it's going to be?
About something, was it step-by-step Airbnb something?
Okay, step-by-step Airbnb something.
I hope it's step-by-step.
Yeah, okay, step-by-step. What about someone else?
Nothing. Like I just saw on the board something about how you made your six figures. Or,
Curious.
7 figures. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't even write that, so I'm intrigued as well. Okay, cool. So 7-figure something.
Something along what?
Yeah. Okay. So 7-figure something, taught about what I did. Yeah?
How you started a business.
Okay, how I started a business. Okay, cool. Any final suggestions? Anyone? No? Okay, cool. So I always find it kind of strange when introducing myself because I don't really know where to start. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Reese Jensen Ranjagorara, aka RJ Hustle. So that's like my online alias name. And pretty much why I was invited down is because my route into what I'm doing now within entrepreneurship has been very unconventional and just against the norm. So Kristen thought that would be good for me to come out and speak to a bunch of you to almost offer what I call an alternative route. It's pretty much, if you don't want to go down the route of like uni 9 to 5, then what other options do you have? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to talk you through my entire journey from when I was born up until now and talk to you about some of the lessons, things I've learned along the way, and then I'll open it up for a Q&A. Any questions before we start? No? Cool. Yeah. So I'm assuming most of you are from like North London, East London. Yeah? I'm from the complete other side of the world to you guys, right? I'm from South East. So the first time I actually came to North London wasn't too long ago when I started property. But SE18, Woolwich through and through, that's where I was born and raised. Go to the next one, please. And I was born in a Ugandan household. It's my mum and my dad. Now, I think I've taken both of my parents' characteristics in a way. So my mum, she's more like risk-loving, right? She's got a couple businesses back in Uganda. I've invested in a couple of them. I haven't seen the money back, but that's how it goes. And my dad, he's the complete other side of the spectrum. Like he's completely meticulous by the book, very cautious, and he's a bit more reserved. So I've taken his mannerisms, but I've taken my mum's risky approach to life. So I'm pretty much like the demon child between the two of them, right? Next slide. So up until year 3, year 4 is when I officially changed, but I went to primary school in Woolwich. Now this school, it wasn't the best at all. I was around people that weren't the best either, and it showed in the school's performance. So what happened is there was a previous head teacher. He was like almost like the saving grace. And then as soon as he left, the school just tanked. And then that scared my mum. So she was like, cool, do you know, I'm going to remove you from this primary school and take you into a different school that's the best performing in the borough. So in year 4, I moved from Notre Dame, which was like 5 minutes away from where I lived, to a school called Our Lady of Grace, which is, for some of you that are good with geography, is Charlton, SE7. So it's still in the same borough, but it was a lot further away. So me and my brother, he's 2 years older than me, we had to take a bus there, the 53, every single morning. It was good. We bonded quite well along the bus ride. Fell into some funny characters as well, but yeah, it was good. Next slide, please. So then secondary school. Now, my older brother, he was like a natural whiz with everything. Like he could sing, he could dance. He was the smartest person in primary school as well. I think at the time he held the record for the SATs. So imagine I'm younger than him, he's older than me, and he's like the smartest person I know. So he actually took the 11 plus. He went into a school called Dartford Grammar, for those of you that know it. And naturally, because he's older than me, I wanted to follow in his footsteps, and I thought, cool, I want to be smart like him too. So I tried to take the 11 plus to get into Dartford Grammar. I didn't make the grades, but I got into something called Bexley Grammar. Now this is just outside of the area I grew up in. It's an area called Welling. It's a bit more gentrified and affluent, right? So it was a majority white school. I was one of a handful of black students. So it taught me how to maneuver between different rooms and different types of people like very early on. So I kind of became like a lizard. You know, I could hang with the black people if I want to, I could hang with the white people if I want to. So yeah, followed in my brother's footsteps. Now in year 9, I noticed that there was an opportunity, you know, the typical selling sweets in school, Lucozades, I'm sure some of you have even done it as well. That was when I made my first £100. I felt like Jeff Bezos and all those billionaires, because there was one time I used to keep money in a Yu-Gi-Oh tin, right? And then when I brought out £50, I gave it to my mum. I was like, yeah, I want to buy GTA 5. And she bought it for me. And that was when I felt like a proper boss for the first ever time. So I don't know if any of you have had it where like you've tried to hustle for something or tried to afford something by earning it yourself. That was my first taste of real, I guess, like financial freedom is the term that everybody speaks about. So I guess from then, that was what switched my mind on to earning for the self as opposed to trying to go to somebody else to be able to earn. And naturally as well, older people in the school started to gravitate towards me. I've always been a bit mature for my age. And naturally, it's kind of like a young thing, like you want validation from older people, so on and so forth. So I started hanging around older people, especially my brother's friends as well. And from then, it just got my thinking more like an adult instead of somebody that was in year 9, pretty much. So next slide. Now, fast forward, because I'm a bit cautious on time, I ended up going to University of Leicester. It was a safe thing to do. I didn't know what else I wanted to do. So it just made sense. And I've always been quite smart. So I thought, you know, I can get this degree without needing to put that much effort in. Now, when I went to university in Leicester, it's also important to note my brother went there as well. My original choice was Loughborough, but again, I didn't get the grade. So Leicester just gave me an unconditional. I said, fine, let me go. Now, when I was there, instead of focusing on the degree per se, I just fell in love with the pursuit of like chasing money, pretty much. And I had this idea of, if I can graduate with £10,000 saved, I'll feel like nobody can touch me, right? So that was my whole thing. Now, I was doing things, some of the things I was doing wasn't really sensible and I wouldn't recommend it. But a lot of the people that I came into contact with, they play a big part in everything I'm doing now, and I'll come back onto that. But I nearly sacrificed my degree in the pursuit of money. Again, I wouldn't really recommend it, but it worked out. I think I'm one of God's favorites because the way my life has turned out is so random, and I can't tell you everything now, but a lot has happened. So long story short, I ended up superseding my goal. And then in like second year university, I thought, what about if I could buy a house as soon as I graduate? So then everything I was doing in university, I put towards just being able to save up so that I could buy a house. And then lo and behold, I ended up making it happen. Next slide, please. So I graduated, and I think the month after I graduated, that's when I bought my first property. It was an auction. For those of you that don't know what auctions are, it's pretty much, have you seen like Homes Under the Hammer? Yeah, it's exactly like that. So I used to watch Homes Under the Hammer with my mum, and it kind of just gassed me up to think, oh my gosh, I want to do this as well. And lo and behold, I did. It didn't really go smoothly, but it worked out the way I think it was meant to. And I bought it, lost a bunch of money in the process. I was forced to make a lot more money in the process as well. And that was when I really started to think, like, hold on, like, there's actually a lot of stuff I can do. Because in that process, I had builders that finessed me for thousands. I had bridging company lenders. It's pretty much a different type of mortgage lender in simple terms. They were on my ass for hundreds of thousands as well. So I was forced to have to get creative, and I was forced to like push myself beyond any limitations I thought that I had. So then next slide, please. What happened is I finished it, I developed it, and I was meant to sell it because I think at this point in time, cash-wise, it was probably about £100,000 I had invested into the house. Now, I had this dream of property development. And naturally, I'm not a millionaire, so I don't have unlimited money. I needed to sell the house so that I could continue to buy the next one and the next one and the next one. So I sold it. It sold above asking price. It sold within a couple of days. I was so excited. I booked a flight to LA within 3 days with 3 of my friends. I came back and I found out that the house sale fell through. Now I tried to sell it again and it fell through again. So I was stressing, thinking, oh my gosh, I have £100,000 tied up in this house and I can't sell it. And remember when I told you bridging lenders were on my ass? They were basically saying, cool, if you don't repay us by, I think it was September or something, we can basically repossess the house. And I was thinking, Lord have mercy, like this is everything I've worked for. So then I ended up getting a mortgage. At first, this is something you come to find out that with mortgage lenders, they're very particular. And at the time I was young, I think I was 21 at the time, first time landlord, so I had no prior experience. I wasn't in a full-time job as well, so I didn't have like a bunch of pay slips and stuff that I could give them. My credit was good, it's always been good, but essentially I was seen as high risk. Now what that means is with lenders, they're the complete opposite of risk. They're very risk averse. So they want like a safe, sure bet, and I wasn't that. So most of them weren't willing to lend me the money that I needed to redeem the bridging loan, pay them off so that I could finally breathe. So what I needed to do is sell half of the ownership to my dad, and that ended up costing me, I think, another £3,000 or so. And then that ended up working. But it was like a silver lining, it was bittersweet because I was still high risk. So the mortgage lender said, all right, cool, we'll give you a mortgage now that your dad's on the mortgage deeds as well. But rather than giving you what they call like 75% loan to value, I don't want to bore you with the jargon, but pretty much we're not going to give you as much money as you want, but we will give you as much as you need to pay off the bridging company. So what that meant is I still didn't have any money after I'd invested however much I invested. And I was thinking, how the hell am I going to continue to buy properties when I have no money? Right. Next slide, please. So then this put me on a journey of learning how to raise money from investors. Now it sounds like an alien concept, like, oh my gosh, how can you speak to someone and get money from them? But it's pretty simple. Everything business-wise in life is just problem solutions. There are people out there that have money and they don't know what to do with it. You have a solution. So for me, I had the know-how with property. I had the proof of concept as well because I'd already developed my first house. So I just went to, I think my first investor, funnily enough, was somebody that found me from LinkedIn. Because with the first house, I was documenting, I was posting what I was doing online. I kind of went viral a bit. And then she's now a counsellor, actually, funnily enough. She works for the Labour Party. By the time she said, hey, like, I really like your stuff. Do you work with investors? I was thinking, investors? What are you talking about? And then we had a conversation. We spoke on the phone for maybe about 15 minutes. And she said, all right, cool, I'll give you £5,000. I was like, shit, like, really? She was like, yeah. So then I drafted up contracts. AI wasn't around at the time, so I had to manually do it myself. And yeah, she sent me the £5,000. And that was like my first eureka moment of like, oh my gosh, I can actually speak to people and they'll give me money. So then I went on to, it's like a training program. I paid thousands of pounds, to be fair. And this guy, he basically took what I had and put it almost into a framework that I could follow so that I could raise hundreds of thousands. And I remember on the day in the room, he got me to call somebody in my network. Now, fortunately enough, I've known people that have some access to wealth. So I called one of my friend's mums and I told her, like, hey, look, I'm about to carry on, you know, buying and developing houses. I've got this amazing opportunity. Here are the numbers, you know, buy for 100,000, end value 300,000. Is this something that sounds like I should do? She was like, oh yeah, that's a great deal. Then I was like, oh, okay, great. Do you know anybody that would like to get involved? And actually she was like, yeah, I want to get involved. So then off the back of that, she ended up investing. I got somebody else to invest and then I ended up raising $250,000. And that's when I bought 2 more houses, converted them into what they call HMOs. It's pretty much just like splitting a house up into multiple rooms. And then I thought, fucking hell, I'm this big time developer now, right? Next slide, please. But then after that, so I'd raised hundreds of thousands. I was responsible for hundreds of thousands worth of like bridging loans, mortgages and stuff. But the problem that I found out with development is that it takes a tremendous amount of time and you don't actually see any return back for probably even a year plus. And now because investors are involved, in order to maintain my reputation, I had to make sure that they were paid before I was paid. So even though on paper it's like, cool, I own all of these properties, they're worth over $1 million, which is probably why they said the whole 7-figure thing. Basically, I was just still broke. Like the cash flow wasn't there. So I needed to make money fast. Fortunately, I was documenting what I was doing. So I was almost building a brand online. It's kind of like with a volcano, like the lava is building up beneath the surface. So then one of my friends that I met at university, he ended up working at TikTok. So he basically got like the behind the scenes juice on like what works well with social media and stuff. And he basically said to me like, cool, you've got a phenomenal opportunity. You can basically monetize everything you've been doing. Monetize just means like make money from it, right? So then I thought, okay, cool. I have this following online. I think at the time it was maybe 30, 40,000 or something. And I had people messaging me saying, oh, can I learn? Can I learn? Can I learn? And at the time, I still felt so like new. So I didn't feel right charging people to learn when I was still learning myself. But then my circumstances said, you better take the money because like, why the hell would you turn down money that people are offering you? And I thought, okay, cool. This was 2024 after I finished these 2 properties, and I was speaking with my friend Kumi, who's the one that worked at TikTok, and we almost informally spawned a company called Property Hustle, which you can see on my shirt. I'm going to get back to why there's random Mandarin characters on my t-shirt. Next slide, please. So this is what happened. Now, November of 2024, that's when I filed it on Companies House. That's when it became a thing. And then I think we made, in that first month, funny, like we made £10,000 in the first month, full transparency. So I was thinking, whoa, I've got the formula now. Yeah, we went to Nigeria for Dirty December, and we were just thinking, my gosh, like we've got the secret formula now. Like we're gonna be rich. So then, naturally, as young, dumb people do, you get excited and you think the money's always gonna come in, and we just started spending a ton. Not really on lavish stuff, but on trying to make the business better, because we fundamentally don't really like the space that we operate in, the online education space. I just think it's filled with a bunch of corny people that aren't real. And a lot of them make money their identity. So we wanted to kind of change that. Now, we spent tens of thousands on like marketing. You know, here is where we went to China. So this is why I have this t-shirt. It basically says, we can help you make money in UK real estate. Something to the effect of that. So we went there, we paid about, I think it was £6,000 for this booth here. Now we were surrounded by, I don't know if any of you have been to Dubai, if that might be above your age range. But there's companies like Damac, Soba, for Arsenal fans, they're the one that sponsor the football team. Now we were surrounded by them. You can probably see part of their booth. Their booths were massive. They had budgets that we couldn't even look at, but we thought, do you know what, let's get creative. And one of the things that we did as well is that we printed out these poker chips, right? And we almost like gamified the attention. And that's how we managed to, we didn't raise money from this trip because there was a pivot, but we generated a lot of traction and we made a lot of noise whilst we were out there surrounded by like billionaire companies. Next slide, please. And then after that, because all of this stuff costs a lot of money, and we hit almost like a brick wall, the cash went strapped again. And I wasn't doing any more development projects because I was thinking, I've got the skill, I know how to raise hundreds of thousands, but ultimately I'm not gonna get paid that much. So do I really want to do it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the question I was asking myself. So I went broke again, kind of, but I had the earning ability now. I knew how to raise money and I knew how to make money fast. So me and my business partner again, we almost changed the offer a bit, and I was thinking, okay, cool. I've got the skill of knowing how to raise money from people. We've got a mechanism that allows people to also raise money and put it into property, but I don't really find it that feasible for young people like myself to raise money and put it into property projects that will cost them hundreds of thousands and will only get them a payoff of maybe £1,000 a month if they're lucky. So then that stumbled on, next slide please, the realization of like Airbnb. I'm sure all of you have heard of it. Now that same one house that didn't sell, what I forgot to tell you guys was when I kept it, I put it on Airbnb. Now when I did, I'll be transparent, my mortgage at the time was only £600, but I was getting booked and people were paying me like £2,000-3,000 to stay in the property for a month. I was thinking, no, like I'm actually making like good money from this one house. And this is a result of me putting it on Airbnb. So I thought if I can get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, how much money can I make? And then the math started churning over in my mind. I was thinking, flipping, I might actually be a millionaire. So what happened was I took the skill that I learned with development and I decided to put it into a faster vehicle with Airbnb. So rather than me buying the properties now, I just go to landlords and say, look, you've got this property, here you go, I'll pay you your rent. Let me take ownership of the property for typically 3 years, and I'll just pay you every single month and I can do what I want with it. Shake hands with the landlord, cool. Earlier on this year, next slide please. This is when I decided to, we turned it almost into a game, because one thing we're good at is getting attention. So we said, okay, cool, let's play Monopoly in real life. Let's get a property at every single tube stop in London. I started with Greenwich, Woolwich, Old Street, Camden, Harrow. I haven't got any around here, to be honest. But yeah, we just said, fuck it, sorry for my swearing, but we said, let's just take over the city pretty much. And I spoke to one of my investors that invested in one of the properties that I bought a couple years ago. I told him about this new exciting opportunity. He gave me 50 grand. I put that into more houses at the start of the year. And then they just started generating a serious amount of money. And I was like, wow, how have I missed this golden opportunity this entire time? So what ended up happening off the back of that is that we changed the offer with Property Hustle to, we pretty much help others do the exact same thing, turn their life around, live the life of their dreams through property as the vehicle. We will teach you the vehicle as I've done it, and just help you do the same thing, just gamify life pretty much. Next slide, please. And so now I've built a portfolio across London. I've still got the houses up in the Midlands that I've developed, but this is the real cash earner, if I'm being honest. And then Property Hustle as well, it just boomed off. We have a bunch of students that have come in and done the same thing. Even after this, I need to go down to Deptford, SE8, because I have a property handover to one of my students who's taking on a unit down there. So it's working very, very well. Next slide, please. So the takeaway is the traditional path isn't the only path. There are multiple ways you can make money in this life. Everything is just problems, solutions. As long as you can solve somebody's problem, you can get paid for doing it. So this isn't to say property is the best thing ever. I think it is, but it might not be for some of you. Yeah. It's basically to say that outside of everything that you might be taught in school, there are other ways, as long as you get creative enough and open your mind to it. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is where you can find me. This is our company page, Property Hustle, hustle spelt with 2 S's. This is my actual page as well, RJ_hustle. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, you can as well. I'm going to be returning to there very, very soon. So that's everything about me and my journey and how you can do something outside of the traditional stuff you're already taught. Yeah. Are we still good on time for questions? Yeah? Yeah. Any questions, guys?
You mentioned the fact that you wanted to buy a property at every single bus, tube stop. What motivated you to actually do that? And are you going to stay between zones 1 to 3 since you have the most amount of profit there, or are you going to expand further?
Definitely expand further. I'd say what gave me the motivation is, so funnily enough, right, this was the original first motivation, is just so I could have different places me and my friends could chill at and I could take girls to and stuff, right? That, if I'm being completely honest. But then it evolved into, hold on, these things actually make me a lot of money. So at the end of the day, it's the money really. Not to say that money is the be all end all, it's not, but it allows you to live the life that you want. And it's the freedom aspect that I liked about it. So it allows me to just live life on my own terms. So that's what motivated me. Yeah.
See that training program that you was talking about?
Yeah.
Was that one of the biggest reasons as to why you're kind of successful? Or was it not really that big of a part?
No, it is. Online education is very lucrative and it's very scalable. So what you'll find is, like even a lot of people in the property space, the reason they start education companies is because property development anyway is very high risk. For example, if I were to buy a property now to develop, if I were to mess it up, I'm liable to lose hundreds of thousands. With online training, there is no downside. It's like you can sell a training program for £1,000, £2,000, £3,000, and there's no downside, and it's very scalable. Whereas development isn't. You need to raise a ton of capital, and it's operationally heavy as well. So business-wise, there's a phenomenal opportunity with any business that has limited downside and almost infinite upside. Because when things are online, I could teach to 1 million people one time, you know? So it makes a lot of money.
You see how you mentioned that you went broke twice. Do you think those like hurdles were avoidable, or do you think that they had to happen to get to where you are now?
I think everything naturally is avoidable, but I don't know if you've ever heard of like the butterfly effect, like things, if one thing happens, then the next thing happens because of it and stuff like that. So for me, I think that number one, I wouldn't change anything. And number two, they needed to happen. So number one, I could value money more. And number two, I could almost be more grateful when certain things happen. Yeah.
So I don't know if you know about the 90-day rule.
Yeah.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
So my question is like, is that still applicable today? And if so, like, how are you going around that?
It is applicable.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think how I can tell you this safely. Okay, so anything to do with the government, a lot of the times, the government are like notoriously slow to do anything.
Yeah.
So the above the board thing to do is get planning permission. Yeah, but because this 90-day rule concept is still kind of new,
Yeah.
and the government aren't really enforcing it, it's like, is there really a 90-day rule?
Yeah.
So make of that what you will.
Starting off now, it would be a good time to do rent to rent.
Yeah, there's no time like the present.
Yeah.
There's no time like the present, yeah.
And there's, do you reckon rent to rent is the best path in property at the moment? Because obviously there's like social housing and so many things that you see online.
Yeah. I'm always skeptical to use the term best, because what might be best for me might not be best for you. You know, you always have to look at your circumstance and what you're trying to achieve as well. So for the typical person that doesn't have a lot of money to start, they want to make a lot of money, then yes, for the most part. But for example, you mentioned social housing. Social housing is an add-on to rent. So you could rent a property from a landlord, and rather than renting it out on Airbnb like I've done, you can hand it off to a social housing provider. Does that make sense? Yeah. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you have properties in other countries?
Not yet. No, my mum's been trying to get me to invest in Uganda, but I gave her a few £1,000s years ago. I haven't seen it back. So, yeah. But that will come there. Definitely. More questions?
I don't know if it's been asked already, but what do you think is a good amount of capital to start with, and how do you personally go with like protecting your investment? Because I hear like a lot of like horror stories, like the council like rented out the property I own and like they just trashed it and whatever. So it's like,
good question. So how do I protect the capital? You kind of protect it before you ever take a project on. So there's a term called due diligence, and what that means is that you do all of your checks and stuff, make sure that the project you're about to do is as safe as can be. It's pretty much just a calculated risk. And what was the other part of your question, sorry?
What do you think is like a good amount to start with?
That's it, good amount to start with. So for development, there's a formula that I'll give you. If you want to buy and develop, then you'll need 25% deposit instantly. Plus stamp duty, it's gone up, it's like another 5% or so. So I just tell people, because you're gonna need to pay solicitor fees, broker fees, just a whole bunch of fees that are unnecessary in my opinion, but you have to pay them. Factor in 35% of the purchase price. So if the property is £100,000, you need £35,000. And then you will need to factor in the cost of developing the property as well. So if it's £100,000 and you need to spend £25,000 on it, You need £35,000, so 35% of the 100,000, plus £25,000 to develop. Add those two together, £60,000. Makes sense? Now with rent-to-rent stuff, typically it's 1 month's rent plus deposit, which is another month's rent. You then need to furnish the property. So I tell people it's about £1,000 to £1,500 per room. And lastly, there's a sourcing fee a lot of the times if you're paying to get the property. That can be anywhere from like £2,000 to £3,000. So once you factor all of those things in, it's around about £10,000, I'd say, for rent to rent. I've gotten away with that though. There was a property I took on in Woolwich, SE18 by the river, the new build development. I think all in it was about £7,000. So you can get away with less if you're willing to like find the property yourself. Make sense? Yeah? You're welcome. Any other questions?
Where do you think the gap in the market is currently?
Where do I think the gap in the market is? Are you talking about with properties to buy them? The gap in the market. I would say gap in the market. Do you know what? So people aren't buying as much right now. So property prices are kind of not coming down, but things are taking a lot longer to sell. So it's more of a buyer's market. When they say buyer's market, it means that if you have a lot of money, now is the time for you to make the most with your money because people are more desperate to sell because things aren't selling. So I'd say there's a gap or an opportunity there. Naturally, this is something I'll tell all of you from now. When things are fearful in the news, a lot of the time, you should pay attention because when people get scared, the masses step away, but the people that have the know-how, they step towards. So I don't really watch the news like that, but if you hear a lot about, oh my gosh, property is bad, I would pay close attention. Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
You said that your boy like works at TikTok. Like, what
Yes.
advice would you give to people that's trying to like gain traction on social media? And would you say that having a following helped you to get to where you are now?
1,000,000%. It definitely did. I wish he was even here. He was meant to come. He'd be able to give you an absolute masterclass. But if there's anything I've learned from him, number one, it would be less is more a lot of the time. So don't try and like overcomplicate, you know, the edits and fancy stuff and all of that. Volume trumps everything else. So if you can post like a low quality video every day as opposed to a high quality video once a week, go for the low quality. So that's one thing, is consistency. Naturally at the start, you're going to be anxious. There's like a fear of perception that you have to get past. So the easier you make it to start, the better, which is why we try to tell people not to overcomplicate it, just like post, get it out there. It's kind of like exposure therapy in a way, like do it, and then you realize it's not that scary, and then continue to do it. So build the reps, and what you'll find is the more you do it, the better you'll get. My first videos were terrible. If I'm being honest, they were completely terrible, but they worked. So having a big following, you don't even need a big following to either like raise money or like make sales or whatever, but it does help. It does definitely help. Yeah?
Time's up. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, time's up, guys. Thank you. Thank you.